From Zamfara to Kaduna, Katsina to Sokoto, the Northwest has become a war zone. Leman paints a grim picture. Villages razed, children abducted, farmers displaced, and entire communities living in fear. But what's worse, the quiet complicity of some in power, those who fund, negotiate with, or turn a blind eye to the bandits. Nigeria's response to banditry has gradually accommodated a shadow economy of ransom payments, negotiated settlements, and official ambiguity.
What is framed as crisis management has, in practice, obscured accountability and normalized arrangements that ought to trouble the national conscience. When the state, either through negligence or negotiation, empowers those who terrorize its citizens, what remains of its moral authority? Today, we confront a chilling truth, one that columnist Shuaibu Usman Leman doesn't mince words about. In his searing commentary on TheNiche, Leman declares that funding bandits is not just a policy failure, but a betrayal of public trust. Joining us for the discussion this morning is the former National Secretary of the NUJ, Shuaibu Usman Leman. Thank you very much for joining us.
Morning.
If I begin with the initial opening paragraph of the article on TheNiche, it says, if the allegation that the local government in Katsina State budgeted public funds for payment to suspected bandits is false, then the government owes the public a full, transparent, and credible explanation. Silence or denial is insufficient. If the allegation is true, it must be reversed immediately and those responsible held accountable. Security is not a commodity to be bought from the lawless. It is a right that the state must guarantee. To treat it otherwise is not only a policy failure, it is a betrayal of public trust. Very clearly put out there. So let's start with, what has led you to this conclusion, what patterns you've seen from the government in the fight against insecurity that has led you to conclude or to reach this conclusion about the funding for bandits, and what your response would be to those who argue that is the non-kinetic method, it's the carrot and the stick approach to fighting insecurity.
Well, first and foremost, we need to understand that security is the primary responsibility of government. Security is a constitutional duty and not a negotiated service. You cannot pay criminals today and expect peace tomorrow. Once violence becomes a budget line, the state has surrendered its moral authority. Allegations like this, like I say, when coming especially from prominent people like the former SSG of Katsina, require government verification and not silence. Was the allocation real? Who authorized the budget proposal? Under what legal frame? These are very fundamental issues that need to be answered, because when you keep quiet, when you refuse to account for your actions or inactions, it gives room for speculation and for people to conclude that certain things are being done improperly. If violence becomes profitable, peace becomes irrational. And every naira that is paid to criminals is taken away from schools, from healthcare, from farmers, and from law-abiding citizens who obey the law. And once violence becomes a budget line, like I said, the state begins to lose its moral authority. And in times like this, silence is not golden. When you keep quiet, you become complicit in this action. And that is why I wrote that Nigerians need explanation. Nigerians need to be convinced. And we believe it is not proper that criminals should be paid. And let me be clear, dialogue is not the problem. Amnesty, accountability, reintegration, whatever you call it, is not the problem. But when such are done, there must be a criteria for granting amnesty to criminals, for reintegrating criminals into society, and for forgiving criminals who have taken the state to ransom and citizens of this country. This is what we are saying.
Okay, let me ask generally, I mean, in your view, is there a difference between negotiating with bandits and actually funding them. Where do we draw the line? Negotiating with them and funding them.
When you even talk about funding, and that is why we say that we need explanation. What do you mean by funding? Giving them money for ransom purposes, giving them money for welfare purposes, giving them money to stay away from villages and from communities and from farmlands, or what? Who are the bandits? And it gives room for conclusion that the person that budgeted that amount is a bandit himself, because such actions give room for removal of public funds for personal use. And that is why it is very, very serious. 300 million naira for a state like Katsina, if for a local government, is much money. This is an area where schools have been destroyed, villages have been ransacked, farmlands have been destroyed, and yet there are allegations of 300 million naira being removed to finance bandits. This is too much, and I think there is need for government to come in and make it very clear to Nigerians what that means, whether the money has been budgeted, whether they intend to budget that money, or whatever. There is need for clear information over this issue.
Okay. So in your article, what are you addressing? And what is the way forward, especially looking at the fact that the government has remained silent, especially on this issue of state governors paying bandits, ensuring that the citizens or members of the community gather money and funds to keep the bandits at bay and ensure that they do not in any way disrupt their livelihoods. What are you looking to achieve with your article at first, and what do you think the government should do, since it seems like they've been quiet?
My fear is that, one, Nigeria, according to UNICEF, has about 20 million out-of-school children. Out of this, majority of these are in northern Nigeria. And places like Katsina have over 3.5 million out-of-school children. And Nigeria will not secure peace through transactions. We will secure peace through justice, through transparency, and a security policy that protects citizens and not criminals. When you begin to invest in lawlessness and forget about investing in education, investing in healthcare, investing in rural infrastructure, you are destroying a whole generation. This is my fear, and this is my line of argument, that look, we are in a very dire situation, especially in northern Nigeria. We cannot continue to be reckless in the way we spend money, ignoring the welfare and security of ordinary citizens. It is in Katsina State and other states in the north that you see complete villages being destroyed and wiped out. Villagers becoming internally displaced persons. Look at this case of Kaduna State, for example, where over 150 worshippers have been taken away into the bush without trace. Look at the area of Kidanwea, for example, in Kaduna State, where villagers said they have raised 40 million naira ransom by selling over 3,000 bags of corn to generate that money just to pay bandits. Nigeria is slowly dying, and these are things that government should take very seriously. We cannot continue to allow local governments and state governments to negotiate with bandits, with criminals, to the detriment of other Nigerians who are law-abiding. Kinetic measures, non-kinetic measures, yes. But first of all, you cannot convince criminals to drop their weapons without first of all showing them the force and the might of the state. Without that, criminals will continue to dictate what they want. Criminals will continue to take over the aspects of negotiation and continue to negotiate with you at their own pleasure. This is my fear, and these are red lines we need not to cross.
When you say that, silence is not an option and you demand accountability from the government, what will that look like? What will that accountability look like? What will not permitting silence? I mean, he says the danger lies not only in what the state fails to stop, but in what it quietly permits. So what will that look like? Will press conferences be enough? What sort of explanations or methods do you expect them to react and respond to this?
Well, press conferences will not be enough. You have to be convincing enough. If a third tier of government is claiming to budget 300 million naira for bandits, there should be clear explanation, convincing explanations for people to understand why such monies are being budgeted. If you are releasing 70 million bandits because of peace, what are the criteria that you are using to release these bandits? We have instances in the Northeast where we have these criminals that are called repentant bandits or repentant terrorists. A lot of them have claimed that they have surrendered, but they have not repented. They have surrendered, but they have not repented. And that's a very serious issue. So what we are saying is that government, first of all, must convince us about the need for negotiation, about the need to budget money for these bandits. You cannot claim that these bandits have suffered long-term neglect by government. All Nigerians have been suffering this long-term neglect by government. It cannot be for a band of criminals that have been terrorizing citizens. It is important that we realize that you cannot pay criminals today and expect peace tomorrow. No, certainly not. The much needed money should be used for education, especially in the North. We should use for farmers who are suffering. We should use it for healthcare and other facilities. Such explanations are not coming from government. The government is keeping mute over this. You just cannot dismiss such allegations by issuing a press statement from your press secretary and say these are lies. When allegations are coming from very prominent people who have served in government, like a former secretary to the state government, we should take them seriously. We should demand proper explanation. We should demand proper accountability so that we know that government is not complicit in this act of banditry and criminality that is happening in almost every part of northern Nigeria.
What about the citizens? What role do the citizens play? I mean, Dr. Christopher Inua clearly, I mean, we're seeing here that he clearly calls them out and calls the government out and alleges the allocation of 300 million naira in the budget for 2026 for compensation of bandits. And if someone of that repute can make such strong allegations, not a random person, what do we make of it? What do we make of the silence that has ensued? And how can citizens, hold the government to account as well?
I cannot hear you very well.
Okay, I was speaking about the allegations by Dr. Christopher Inua, who is the former secretary to the Kaduna State government, about the 300 million naira that was allocated in the 2026 budget for payments to suspected bandits. And if someone of that caliber makes such strong allegations, what does that tell us about where we are? And how can the citizens hold the government to account?
Well, accountability by holding government to account by citizens is very difficult. And that is why you and I are here today, because we have taken up the challenge as media personalities to discuss these issues on behalf of those who don't have a voice. And we are demanding on their behalf that government needs to explain these issues because these are important issues. How I wish some of these programs would be taken in Hausa, the language that most of people in Katsina and some of these rural areas even understand. You will be surprised the way some of them will come and contribute to such programs. It is important that the media should go into this and try to make government to account for their inactions and inactions over some of these things. It is very germane that we do that, and it is in that respect that I wrote that my column over this, and I'm happy your medium has taken it up. I believe that if the media goes into this in detail, we are going to get a headway over some of these issues. Unfortunately, you know, most of the people are ignorant of some of these things. Most of the people are illiterate, and they don't even have access to like media like you and I. But we are doing that on their behalf, and I think that the government is listening to this, and we should demand explanations to some of these things. I continue to reiterate that 300 million naira as a budget line is a lot of money. It can put a lot of schools in order. It can buy drugs in rural clinics, and it can repair boreholes all over the place. So we should continue in this line. We should continue to demand explanation. We should put government to do what is right on behalf of the citizens of this country.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking with us. We've been talking to Shuaibu Usman Leman. He's the former National Secretary of the Nigeria Union of Journalists. He did put out an article on TheNiche.ng. You can check it out, TheNicheNG.com. And the theme of that article, the title is Funding Bandits is a Betrayal of Public Trust. Hence why he's our guest this morning. Looking at all aspects, especially concerning that in Katsina State, where 300 million naira has been budgeted to ensure that it would be used to pay suspected bandits. And he's broken down why this needs to be challenged, and also calling on the federal government and all as Nigerians, including residents of Katsina State. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to speak with you again in the nearest future. Thank you.
Thank you.